Hello everyone, this is Damon with Pixnub. In this video, I'll be doing a tutorial on the Pixnub Stadium Light brushes, which also double as Pro Light Mod brushes as well. So I'll be demonstrating how to use these brushes for each of those. So I'll be doing 3 images here. One where we'll be doing some Pro Light mods, and then one where we'll be adding a stadium light, and then one where we're just going to add some light rays to an existing stadium light. So to get started, you'll need to install the brushes, and to do that, in your brushes window, if you don't see that, you go to window and then brushes, and then from the drop down menu, you just hit import brushes, and then the file that's .abr file in the download is the brush file. So once you've loaded those in, you'll have the stadium light brushes here, and they're in 3 different groups. There's a light array maker, and then there's some vertical and horizontal light rays. For this first image, I'm not going to be using the light rays. I'm just going to use the light array maker. And we're going to be doing the Pro Light mods look in this image. So let me hide the player image. We need a new layer to put the lights in. So I'll just call this layer lights. All right, so these are really easy to use. There is 6 brushes in the array maker, 1 through 6. And then all you're going to do is grab the one you want. So I'll use the one in this example called 1x3. So if you don't see the brush and you just see the crosshairs, there's 2 reasons. 1, if you have your caps lock on, you'll see that. But 2, if the brush is too big, you'll see that, which is the case here. So I'll hit the left bracket arrow to size down the brush until I can see the size. These are very high resolution brushes, by the way, so that's why you may not see them, because they may be too large for your canvas. But once we get the brush sized about where we want, if we just click anywhere, you see that it makes a 1x3 light. And you can click around and make the different lights wherever you want them. But what you can also do is hold the Shift key down and then click and drag. And so that makes this an array of lights. Now, if you don't like the spacing the way it is and you want to change that, if you go to your brush settings, and if you don't see that, that's under Window Brush Settings, which is a different window than the brushes window itself. But you can change the spacing of that. So you see if we space that out, this gives us a visual representation here. You can make them closer or further apart. So now if I hold Shift and click, now you see it's brushing with those lights further apart. And we tried to make these so the spacing is about right for most situations, but you can change that as you need for your specific images. All right, then once you have your lights in place, you can move those, space those wherever you want. Now let's say you wanted to add some color to these lights, because right now they're very white. In the download, you've also got some layer styles that comes with that. So to load those, you'll first need to go to your styles window, and then from your styles window, there's a drop down. You can do the same thing you did with the brushes. In this case, just import styles, and then that's the file that ends in a .asl. Okay, so the layer styles, there's 10 different layer styles, and they look just pure white when looking at them. And that's because Photoshop, with these particular styles, doesn't render the icon well at all. It just makes it pure white. But it actually will add color. And if you hover over any of those, it'll give a name and say what color that is. So in this first one, we'll say Stadium Lights Red 0. We got orange 20, orange 35. And so the number next to the color is actually the hue of that color. So, because in some cases we've got 2 different hues of orange, then the blues are the other one. There'll be a blues 195 and a blue 210. I want to use the blue 195 for this. So with that layer selected, you just click on the layer style that you want. Let's hide the fog so we can see that. If we click through these, we can see we're adding color, but it's not changing the color of the light. It's keeping that white and it's adding just the glow color to change that. Now, if you want to change the amount of color or the color itself to fine tune it, if you double click on the layer style here, it's the outer glow, and then you'll select the color, and you can change the color if you want to fine tune it. Like say you wanted to make the blue something different than one of those 10 presets, you could do that. Or you could just come in here to the opacity and turn that up or down to give it more or less color in the glow around those. So really slick here. Can easily create our Pro Light mods to the exact specifications that you want. Now let's say that you wanted to add 2 different rows of lights with different colors. I'm just going to do one more quick demo here. Now if you've already got your layer style in there with the color, then once you paint in again, I've actually deleted the lights. I'm going to go paint some new ones in. So let's get the 1x6. Okay, you can see that we've got the blue color around it. Now let's say we wanted to make an identical row of lights on the other side a different color. So if I just duplicate that layer, and then I could take that duplicated layer and move that. And I could just go right into this layer style that already exists and then just change the color to whatever I want. Or you could also go in to your layer styles as well and select a different layer style to apply there. Either way, that's up to you. And then of course, if you did this, you'd probably have your smoke a different color as well. Not going to really show these different layers here, but just to demonstrate, yeah, you can have different color smoke with different color lights to match. And with these brushes, you can quickly just add the light effects anywhere you want in your images. All right, so moving on. I think I want to do, let's do this one first. All right, so in this case, we've already got some stadium lights here, but let's just say I wanted to add in some light rays to these. So in here we've got, there's 13 different light rays vertical and 13 different horizontal. And these are the same exact light rays except for they're turned at 90 degrees. And there's a specific reason why I doubled up on these. And the reason why is because, well, let me demonstrate this here. It's kind of hard to explain without showing. All right, so let's say I'm going to grab the light rays vertical 35. And in the brush settings, we can change the angle of the light any way we want. We can also change the shape of the light. And you can see in the case where I grab the vertical light, if I change the shape, it makes the aspect ratio real short and wide. Now if I go to the horizontal 35, it's going to do the exact opposite. So we could still change the angle. Let's say we go with a similar angle here, but if we change the aspect ratio, it's making that light real narrow. And so that's why I doubled up on these, because I just felt that it was important to have both ways you can adjust your brush settings. All right, so for this, I'm just going to go with, let's see, how about 60? Trying to decide here. Let's put a, okay, so when you do this, you're going to have to do another layer here. And I think I'm going to go with the 45. And this number is just the, the angle of the light is all that is. It's so this is taking up a 45-degree angle is what that means. So I'll show you one thing too here before I do the next step. If you just click and put a light in a layer, let's say you want to move that now, look what happens. You're cropped off on that light. So you've got two options if you want to be able to move the light around. The first option is you can make sure that the light stays all on frame, which can be hard to do at times because that the border that you see on the screen that's rendered, it will actually put the light outside of that a little bit too, so that can be deceiving. What I like to do, if I know that I'm going to be brushing on the canvas and I'm going to be going over the edges possibly, is I like to go to the canvas size and increase the size of that canvas. So in this case, let's just go 200%, just because it's a nice, easy number to work with. And so we can expand the canvas. And this is only temporary because now if we click in here, we can see that the light is not cropped off on the edge. And so we don't have to worry about that happening. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm not going to use this one actually. I'm going to come down here. There's three more that are called wide on the end. So if you see the 45 and the 45 wide, you see that they're the same angle, but the top is wider. So for the wide ones, there's 45, 60, and 75. So let's use this 45 wide here. Then once we get that where it needs to be, if I control T, actually before I do that, it's probably better to put this in a smart object. Now if I control T, Alt Shift to keep the height and just move the width. I can scale this so it fits the light a little bit better here. And I can rotate this into place. Now, if you're dealing with angled lights, you might have to do a little bit of brushing on the lights as well. All right, somewhere in there is about right. I'm going to throw a mask on here and take a very soft brush. And I'm going to brush black into the layer mask here. So wherever you brush in the layer mask, you're brushing off the effect. So for instance, if I brushed here, you can see I'm brushing the light off there. I don't want to do that. I'm just doing it on the top where it extended over a little bit. All right, so now we've got the rays in there, or the ray in here. Now we can do the same thing with the color on the rays that we did on the lights by themselves. So if you go into your styles, see I'm going to use the orange 35 here. That color actually looks pretty good, but if we wanted to fine tune that, you could come in here and adjust the color to whatever we wanted the color to be. I don't know, maybe actually somewhere in there is a little bit closer of a match. All right, so again, we could now we could turn the opacity down and dial that in just as we want it. So maybe somewhere in there. I'm going to duplicate that layer. Then I'm going to flip that horizontal. And I'm going to move the, oops. Oh, I don't think it flipped. I don't know what happened. I thought it flipped, but I guess it didn't. Okay, in any case, I'm going to move it in place right here. All right, now we've got lights on the left and right side. And now remember about that canvas that we talked about earlier. We can go back into the canvas size. Since I made it 200% before, I'm going to make it 50% now. Now it's going to crop us right into where we were. Now you see we have the rest of the light that's off canvas. So in case we needed to move that around, we didn't have that clipped edge of it. So you can see with our lights, with our rays on or off. Anyway, just a really quick way to add a little more drama to the existing stadium lights in your image. All right, last image, we're going to add some stadium lights from scratch in this image. So if we put what we learned in the first two images into this and combine those into one, and then we can add stadium lights and rays from scratch into an image. So let's start and make a new layer here, and we'll just call this lights. And then let's make, I don't know, a 3x6 maybe, or 2x6. I don't know. I'm just trying to decide here. You know what? Let's do like a 2x6. Kind of a high school lights feel. Now, one thing too, is it might be a good idea to build the lights bigger than you need and convert to a smart object, and then scale down, because that gives you some non-destructive scaling ability. You know what, let's do the canvas size too on this the same way we did the other one before we do this at all. Remember, hold shift down. Or how about 2x5? I kind of like the look of that. All right, so let's convert this to a smart object. I'm just going to kind of rotate this and then scale it down. I don't know, something like this maybe. All right, I'm going to make a new layer. Let's call this rays. And let's go the widest one here. Let's go 75-degree wide. And then since we've got 2x5, we probably need to widen this. So let's convert this to a smart object. Alt-Shift and spread it out. And once I do that, it's probably a little bit wider than I want, but let's we can kind of fix that too. Let's move this down as well. One good thing about light rays is you can scale them up because they're blurred anyway. It doesn't really hurt the quality. In this image right now, we're looking at 9,600 by 12,000 pixels. Remember, because I doubled that canvas. So these brushes are all 5,000 pixels for the light rays, as large as Photoshop would allow us to make them. All right, somewhere in there. I'm going to do one more step on this too. I'm going to add a glow all the way around the stadium lights. And I don't have a brush for this because That's basically just a soft round brush in Photoshop. We'll just call this glow. All right, so for this, when I do a glow around the lights, I don't like it perfectly round. I like to come in here, kind of make it an oval to kind of fit the shape of the lights. Scale this down a little bit. Oh, wrong direction, +10. I should have made note of the angle that I moved the rays and moved the lights, but I didn't, so I don't know, close enough here. Make sure we're on a hardness of 0, so we're going to paint right in here. Let me actually get that a little bit better. All right, well, good enough, I think. So now we've got 3 layers, lights and a glow, and then the rays. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to recrop this, and then we'll go set some color in this. Convert this to a smart object as well. And remember, now that we're off canvas, when I built those, since it was black against black, I really couldn't tell where the edge of the canvas was. No big deal, because everything is not clipped now. We can bring all this back in. All right, so now we'd set the color and then set the opacities of these. So let's go to our layer style. I'm going to start with the glow, that glow around the lights. And you can do different colors too on the ray and then the glow. Sometimes it has a kind of a natural effect where just the aura around the lights itself is a little bit different color than the rays shooting through the fog. So I think I'm actually going to do that. So on the rays, I'll select this one. And then for the lights themselves, let's select that first one. All right, now we'll just set the opacity of everything. This is way too strong, so we can dial this down as needed. And then you don't ever want to turn down the opacity on the lights themselves, because then the lights look see-through, which isn't really natural, so leave that at 100%. But the rays and then the extra glow, if you add it, you can go turn the opacity down there as needed. So something like that looks pretty good, I think. And I'll show you one more thing too. I'm going to actually make a new document. Something I was just thinking of here, which is not intuitive, but here, let's go back. All right. So I just want to do a quick demonstration. I don't want to get too much into the layer styles and the guts of how the blending works, but there is one thing that I know will trip people up if they are not aware of this. I'm going to make 2 different lights, and I'll compare these here, or 2 different rays, and I'll compare them. And the difference that I'm referring to here is the difference in how color is applied differently depending on the opacity you used with the brush itself when you applied it. So I'm going to demonstrate this here by using the same brush twice. And the first time I'm going to let it use the default of 65% opacity. And whenever you select one of the ray brushes, it will set the opacity to 65%. Now you may think that if you turn the opacity up to the brush to 100% and then dial the opacity of the layer down, it would do the exact same thing. So using a white brush here, so on this layer on the left, that layer is set to 100% opacity, and I use 65% on the brush. The layer on the right, I used 100% opacity on the brush, but then set the layer to 65%. Now these look identical when you just look at them right here. But when the color is applied, that won't be the case. We apply the same color to both. Now, one thing about when you apply one of these layer styles here is that will reset the opacity of the layer back to 100%, just so you know. And the reason why is because to save a layer preset, it does not allow to apply the layer style by itself without applying the opacity as well. So these layer styles will set the layer blend mode to screen. Because of that, it had to also record in the opacity. So just know if you ever hit these, you'll have to dial the layer back down. All right, in any case, back to my whole point here. You can see the bottom of this looks the same. The bottom of the blue here, let me get this somewhere, it's not distracting. Okay, the bottom of the blue here looks the same. But up on the top, you can see how this one is much more desaturated than the one on the left. Even though they're both effectively the same opacity right now. The reason why that happens is because of the order of operations for when the color is applied. So the one on the left here, which is the one that I recommend, is when we used 65% opacity to paint in. When that happens, the opacity is applied first down to 65%, and then the outer glow is applied to that. The one on the right here, where it looks more desaturated in the middle, we applied that brush at 100% opacity, so this layer blending got applied to the 100% opacity brush, which makes this less blue because the outer glow is applied based on transparency, and where it's not as transparent, there's less color applied. And so this was applied first to the 100% opacity brush, and then the layer was desaturated. So if you want this effect where there's less saturation in the middle, then by all means turn the brush up to 100% and then dial the opacity down in the layer, and you can see that that's maintaining this desaturated center. But for most situations, I think 65% looks good. It gives you just a slight bit of desaturation to where there's more color as it fades out, because my thought was that the lights were brighter, there'll be a little bit less color apparent, and then as the light fades out, there'll be more. You can also, let's do this again. You can turn down the brush opacity to start with, and that'll even have more of an even color spread. So let's say we go 45 wide. Let's turn this down. This might be a very subtle difference, but okay, so this was applied at 30%. This was applied at 65. So let's turn this down. 45%. Somewhere in there. Gives us around the same overall brightness. But you can see now this one that was applied at 65% opacity on the left, you can even see this one now has a little bit less of a desaturated color. So just know that when you're applying the brush, the lower the opacity is when you apply the brush, the more uniform the color is. And the higher the opacity of the brush, the more there's going to be the white in the middle, and then the color fades out. And like I said, 65%, I like it to where there's just a little bit of desaturation in the middle because that looks better with the lights in my opinion. But anyway, I probably talked about this longer than I should, but I just know that this is something that, even though it's a subtle thing, it can really affect the look of the final brush when you're done. So just be aware of that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you find these brushes useful.